joining us right now, Congressman Matt Gaetz, an actual Florida man. We have a Florida man segment, so I got to. Congressman Matt Gaetz joins us. He's got a new
Florida man.
That's right, proud Florida man, and he's got a new book out, Firebrand I like your cover, by the way. Firebrand Dispatches from the Front Lines of the MAGA Revolution. Okay, before we get into anything else, yes or no, is it true that you grew up in the Truman House?
I did. I grew up in the house that Jim Carrey lived in the movie The Truman Show.
I told
in Seaside, Florida.
Kane didn't believe me. And I was like, I swear there's like a plaque out there that has like your feet. Because we were in Seaside once, and I just remember I was putting two and two together.
So you're saying you went to my house in Seaside,
yeah, a couple years ago,
saw my name on the door, and didn't knock on the door?
Well, it was like a few years ago. It would have been weird, right? I didn't have like a gift. You got to bring something, right? I didn't have like flowers or like a potted plant or anything.
I know you were carrying, because in Florida we actually believe in the Second Amendment.
We have some nice reciprocity from Texas to Florida. We do. You know I was. Yes, of course. Well, I had to ask that because I told Kane, my producer, and he was like, no way. No one lives there. And I'm like, I swear to you, the Gaetz family lives in the house.
So it all comes full circle, because Jim Carrey, as it turns out, is not a fan of my politics.
Wow.
And he actually made a painting of me that, I know this will shock you, is not the most flattering version of my look. It was not under consideration for the cover of my book, Firebrand.
Aww.
But I just thought, how interesting. Jim Carrey makes a movie in my house when I'm 15. Then, he makes some other movies, gets married and divorced a few times, goes a little crazy. I get my law degree, get elected to the legislature, become a congressman, and now he's painting pictures of me. What an amazing world.
Why is he so obsessed with you? I mean, I feel like this is like a Regina George Mean Girls moment. I'm like, why is he so obsessed with you?
Look, whatever Jim Carrey has to do, I am down with, because when you are 15 years old and you can roll down to the beach and say, hey, do you want to come see a scene of The Truman Show and meet Jim Carrey? You could pretty much pick up any chick that you talk to.
I was gonna say that's like the best line ever. Hey, you want to come to where The Truman Show was filmed? I mean, who is it gonna go? Yeah, I totally would.
Yeah, exactly. What's Bobby going to offer you? A hot dog and a Coke?
Yeah, he doesn't have anything.
I felt like it was just a different date experience that I could offer. So if Jim Carrey needs to take a few shots these days, I'm a big boy. I can handle it.
Look at that. Well, a tale of two different men. One actually goes and accomplishes something, and the other paints about as well as Hunter Biden does, which I didn't realize that he blew water through a straw to paint. Apparently, that's what he does. To that point, the debate last night.
I think that's probably not the only thing that went through that straw.
I was going to say, he seemed like he was very adept at holding straws.
Right.
That's not, that someone's not ready to leave rehab when they are trying to snort the paint at craft time. So we'll just.
Right. And, I took a lot of crap for going after that. And really, I have no objection to Hunter Biden's drug use or drug abuse or whatever it is. And I write about this in the book that just came out. My objection is to this notion that we're supposed to pretend like Hunter Biden is eminently qualified to be the Ukraine energy expert, while at the same time he's rolling up on homeless encampments trying to buy a crack. Typically those things don't go together. So It's not an indictment. Look, if he wants to roll around the homeless encampments and buy crack, I'm sort of a live and let live kind of Republican. That that's up to him as long as he doesn't hurt anybody. But when that dovetails with a narrative that is just so obviously corrupt and false, and when it actually could cause damage to our country because it sells out access, then I think you have something far more sinister than somebody who has those other issues.
And you make a very good point, because it definitely wasn't his fluency in Ukraine history or politics or energy or anything of that sort that got him into that position. And from what I understand, he never even actually went there to attend a board meeting in person. The president brings this up in the debate last night, and Chris Wallace scoots right on by it. We're not going to talk. We're not going to have that conversation. Did you watch the debate? I mean, I know you're busy. You're voting today. What did you make of it?
Listen, these debates are like my Super Bowl, okay? I cling to every moment of them. And it was interesting that, President Trump sort of showed up to both participate in the debate and moderate it.
Yeah.
The best questions that were asked in the debate weren't asked by Chris Wallace. They were asked by Donald Trump. And, Chris Wallace, I think what people in Washington don't understand is that out in real America, there's a resentment for the way Chris Wallace treated the president there, because it is just part of this fabric of corrupt elitism that permeates the media and politics. And, the Chris Wallace is a part of that. He is a creature of the elite Washington media machine. And he definitely proved it when he continued to throw lifelines at Joe Biden. Now, I do think that the president threw a few lifelines at Joe Biden as well.
True.
The most difficult challenge that Joe Biden faces is the completion of a thought, paragraph, or sentence. And like when you constantly interrupt someone, you sort of bail them out on having to complete that sentence thoroughly.
Right.
And so I think, my advice to the president in a subsequent debate is like, let Joe tell one of his crazy corn pop stories that just sort of takes us on this like journey to nowhere, and see how the American people react to that.
I want to hear about how he went to the basement of the pool and had a 6-foot chain cut again. That's I'm not the
president. Or remember when he started talking about how the kids love to rub his hairy legs? What was that about?
That it was so odd. And you're right. And I said this yesterday. The best thing that Trump could do is just to let Biden talk. And he did ramble. There were a couple of points where he was rambling and he couldn't actually bring the tugboat back to shore. And it was just weird. He just couldn't, as you were saying, he could not actually finish his thought. And so Chris Wallace jumps in, and you could just see Trump in the corner when they would get certain camera angles. He's just waiting for him to make some kind of point. Never happened. So he would jump in.
But like, I was thinking back to the Joe Biden crazy speech at the pool about his hairy legs and how the children like to rub them.
Yeah.
And like, if Donald Trump had attended that speech, we would have never gotten that little gem from Joe Biden, because Donald Trump would have jumped in and be like, I could totally build a better pool than this. I could do it under budget, more efficiently, more effective. Joe, why don't you sit down? And so like, I think that is the lesson here. While the president was undeniably in command, while he was the strong leader, while like, if you're an average American and you're watching this debate and you're thinking, if one of these two men has to fight for my job, my family, my economic success, my ability for my kids to have a better future, who am I picking to go fight for that?
Right.
And quite clearly, that would be Donald Trump. And, I do think Joe Biden, I will give him this. He played very effectively to his true base, media pundits who hate Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He played right to them.
Yeah, I think he made, because he kept going back and forth on the Green New Deal, even though his website still lists him as supporting it. And he never named any kind of Supreme Court nominee that he would have put forward. He couldn't be pinned down on any kind of answer on the economy, except for the fact that he would increase taxes and increase the corporate tax rate. He said it's 21, it needs to be 28. And I could almost hear the collective thoughts of America going, well, there goes all of our economic recovery again, that's coming back after this lockdown. And he also, speaking of the lockdown too, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this because Florida's been doing really well. Y'all been leading the way down there. He apparently acted like he was against the lockdown this entire time, the economic shutdown.
Yeah, I think that the president was very effective in making Joe Biden the candidate of lockdowns. Yeah. And that segment of the debate was also where the president was most empathetic. When he talked about the pain that families feel as a consequence of depression, substance abuse, he really felt like he had great heart for the country and great compassion for the people that have been through this pain. And look, I mean, the lockdowns are not popular. Okay, people actually want freedom. Nobody trusts some bureaucrat somewhere that is like a reactionary to make decisions about their health care more than them. Now, look, my parents are pretty much locked down. They're a little bit older. They've got some comorbidities. And so, they hang out at the house and we work life around that. But I think for younger, healthier people, the evidence isn't there that you have to just sort of wave the white flag on life, which is what the Biden candidacy represents. And I think like framing that up, Biden the candidate of lockdowns, we're the movement to open up, will be very helpful for people who just aren't political, but who have grown weary of the government control that has resulted from the coronavirus.
Right. We're talking to Congressman Matt Gaetz, whose new book, Firebrand, Dispatches from the Front Lines of the MAGA Revolution. The word revolution, when I look at the stuff that's happening in the streets and when I hear Antifa and Marxist organizations that wrap themselves up in this like blanket of justice and equality, it's not a protest, it's a revolution. And I think the same can be said of what we've been hearing coming out of the Senate after D&I Ratcliffe, the letter that Lindsey Graham made public yesterday, early or late afternoon, that really gets into a revolution that was attempted to undermine voters' will and our mandate in 2016. What are your thoughts on this? And the big question is, how is anyone ever going to be held responsible? I mean, to me, and I'm looking at this as a layman, this looks like sedition when you have people in higher, you have the president of the United States, the vice president, former secretary of state, who is a presidential candidate, that are conspiring with Russian agents considered national security threats to undermine a free and fair election, and abusing government entities and wiretapping and FISA processes in order to go and achieve these ends. Is there going to be any kind of justice on behalf of the voter for these actions?
So this is exactly what I write about in the Russia hoax chapter of my book. When Mueller was appointed, I was one of maybe 5 or 6 Republicans who said this was a sham. This is all fake, and it's a cover-up for what the Clintons have been up to with their foreign contacts and her issues with the email server. This is all there to distract. And we had the entire Democrat establishment against us. We had the entire media establishment against us. And most of the Republicans in the leadership at that time were pro-Mueller. Paul Ryan, Trey Gowdy, these people went out and said we should trust Robert Mueller, we should trust the FBI and the Department of Justice, and we just should hope that Donald Trump didn't do anything illegal. Here's what we know now. The process was the punishment. This was never about a real crime where Donald Trump was an agent of Russia. The whole deal was to create a cloud over his presidency and an air of illegitimacy so that we couldn't do some of the transformational things that the country had given Donald Trump the mandate to do. Now, we got a lot of that stuff done anyway because he is just like through sheer will taking this town to task. But when it comes to the accountability today, you can't help but reflect. If we'd have had a real attorney general instead of Jeff Sessions, right? If we'd have had real Republicans in the leadership of the Congress, I think Hillary Clinton probably would have been held accountable. But now that so much time has lapsed, now that there's been all this revisionist history, who knows? I think we should have had indictments from Durham by now. But what I can say is, Klein-Smith was indicted. An FBI lawyer was indicted for changing evidence to try to frame people to get illegal wiretaps on the President of the United States and his campaign. And that was reauthorized even when our own FBI and Department of Justice knew that the underlying documents buttressing the evidentiary claims had been polluted by Russian intelligence. Yeah. It is like too much even for a spy novel. But in my book, I go through how the president reacted in real time to these things, what his thoughts were, and really the way he viewed his role in the world as being so important that he had to go out there and fight for America, fight for our workers, fight for our economy, and he got it done. I mean, the guy built the greatest economy that we've ever known. Whereas the Obama and Bush years were full of more deployments, more war. President Trump is actually bringing troops home. And by the way, he's learned how you deal with a bully. You punch him in the nose. He took out Soleimani. He took out al-Baghdadi. Right. He took out the leader of al-Qaeda on the Arabian Peninsula. And the Bushes and the Obamas, they would say that the way you deal with a bully is to move into their house for 20 years to try to realign their worldview. Exactly. And that is not an America First approach. The president, I think, is really building a new doctrine that will lead to a successful political realignment for the Republicans.
Absolutely. We are out of time. Congressman Matt Gaetz, the book is Firebrand, Dispatches from the Front Lines of the MAGA Revolution. We'd love to have you back again because I know I'm also following this story, how you're saying that Bloomberg may face criminal investigation for paying felons fines and that whole vote buying
already
scheme.
Underway.
Woo,
yep,
that's
it's
awesome.
Underway in Florida.
Awesome to hear. Congressman, thank you so much for giving us your time. God bless you. And next time I'm in Florida, after the lockdown is all done and that,
knock on the door.
I'm gonna knock on the door. I'll have a gift with me. I'll knock on the door. Good to see you.
All right, see you, Dana.
Take care.